shut down, and that is why the building is closed.
Well, we were advised by the attorneys to close the building. The building shouldn't be open. They're risky.
I think they take this serious. I think it's a big game to them, and they don't understand that the more confusion and the more back and forth that we do, no one suffers.
The spectacle that unfolded under Tiffany Henyard's leadership, she's known as the self-proclaimed super mayor, marks the latest controversial chapter in her already tumultuous political career. To understand the chaos of the meeting, picture a mix of a courtroom drama and a high-stakes soap opera. The event was unlike anything the residents of Theme Township had ever witnessed, filled with heated yelling, finger-pointing, dramatic walkouts, and accusations being hurled in every direction. The atmosphere in the room was so tense it felt almost palpable, and this meeting left the trustees deeply frustrated, adding to the township's already bleak future. As they struggled to make sense of the drama unfolding before them from the moment the meeting began, the air was thick with tension. Henyard wasted no time in setting a combative tone, continuing a months-long streak of controversy surrounding her leadership. Accusations of poor management, corruption, and extravagant spending had followed her for some time, and she was quick to lash out at township trustees. Henyard accused them of neglecting their responsibilities and ignoring the needs of the community, and her remarks grew increasingly venomous. Her criticism wasn't limited to the current board. She also took aim at prior no-shows. Calling out trustees for their absence during important decisions, the tone of the meeting rapidly shifted from tense to chaotic as Henyard escalated the exchanges. The professionalism one might expect in a government meeting was nowhere to be found, with harsh accusations, finger-pointing, and emotional outbursts becoming the norm. For many attendees, this wasn't just a political meeting. It was an impromptu performance of political theater. One attendee, clearly frustrated, compared the proceedings to an old-school wrestling showdown, complete with over-the-top rhetoric and dramatic monologues, delivered with flair. Though the description might have sounded exaggerated, it fit the atmosphere of the evening, especially for those familiar with Henyard's turbulent tenure. But beyond the spectacle, there were significant ramifications for the township's administration. The meeting revealed troubling questions about whether the local government was still acting in the best interest of the community, or if it had degenerated into a partisan battleground. Henyard's critics retaliated fiercely, with several trustees denying her allegations of absenteeism and accusing her of misusing township funds. They charged her with dictatorial leadership and claimed she prioritized personal grudges over the needs of the community. The exchange grew more heated as the trustees and Henyard traded accusations across the room, while Henyard herself remained calm and unfazed by the chaos. Continuing to double down on her criticisms, she framed herself as a determined warrior fighting against entrenched opposition, suggesting that the establishment was determined to block her efforts to serve the community. At one point, Henyard declared, "If you want your job, I'll do it for you." The statement inspired some supporters in the room, but it also drew sharp criticism from those who viewed it as a blatant power grab and a sign of her growing authoritarianism. Tempers flared as one trustee stormed out of the meeting, slamming the door behind him in frustration. The audience, already tense, reacted audibly to the political infighting that was on full display. Meanwhile, Henyard painted herself as a victim of a conspiracy to undermine her, blaming political opponents for orchestrating what she described as constant attacks on her leadership as the meeting deviated further from its intended agenda. The discussion shifted to broader issues facing the township: financial mismanagement, missed deadlines for critical projects, and alleged misappropriation of township funds. Henyard's critics accused her of engaging in reckless spending, suggesting that her focus on lavish projects was tone-deaf to the needs of a community grappling with deteriorating infrastructure, delayed public services, and increasing resident disillusionment. Public safety was also a hotly debated topic, with allegations that township resources were being diverted to protect Henyard personally, rather than being spent on broader safety measures that might benefit the community. The conversation, however, rarely moved toward concrete resolutions. Instead, it amplified the divisions that had already existed in the township since Henyard's rise to power. By the end of the night, it was clear that the meeting had only deepened the rifts between Henyard and her critics. Both sides had dug in their heels, and Henyard remained steadfast in her defiance, presenting herself as a leader undeterred by adversity. Her opponents, however, saw her behavior as emblematic of everything that was wrong with the current state of township government: unclear leadership, a lack of direction, and a hostile atmosphere that left residents and trustees alike exhausted and distrustful. No real answers were provided to the frustrated residents, and Henyard remained unyielding, her position unchanged. The meeting had not brought any clarity, only more confusion and division, further highlighting the deepening dysfunction at the heart of Theme Township's government.
Henyard was not at the hearing here today. Neither was her attorney, and she was not made available.
Thoron Township is grappling with a growing crisis that extends beyond political disputes, one that directly threatens essential community services. Since December 1st, the township has been without insurance, leaving both residents and employees vulnerable. This lack of coverage could disrupt vital programs, such as senior transportation and after-school programs for children. Despite a heated meeting aimed at addressing this issue, no resolution was reached. Instead, the gathering descended into chaos, with blame flying in all directions, impassioned speeches, and growing frustration from all parties. The most prominent figure in this conflict is Mayor Tiffany Henyard, whose defiance and accusations further fueled the tension during the meeting. Henyard did not hold back in accusing the township trustees of negligence. She claimed that the insurance renewal was canceled because the trustees had repeatedly failed to attend prior meetings. She urged residents to reach out to their trustees directly, demanding that they fulfill their duties. "You all should reach out to your trustees because they are not doing their jobs," Henyard told the room, her words resonating through the increasingly hostile atmosphere. However, her detractors quickly seized upon her accusations, accusing Henyard of using the insurance crisis as a political tool to manipulate the board into supporting her personal agenda, one of her most vocal critics. Trustee Chris Gonzalez did not mince words when he criticized Henyard's approach to the issue. He argued that Henyard's handling of the situation was both ineffective and deliberately divisive, designed to increase her own power rather than addressing the needs of the community. As voices were raised and tensions heightened, the meeting devolved into a spectacle of accusations, with no practical solutions emerging. It became clear that there were deep divisions between Henyard and the trustees, and this rift only further prevented any meaningful progress. The dysfunction within the township's leadership was on full display, and the spectacle only increased citizens' anxiety. As residents watched the chaos unfold, they were left with little hope that their critical services would be restored. The trustees accused Henyard of using her position for political gamesmanship, while Henyard struggled to maintain control amidst a storm of resistance. What should have been a productive discussion about securing insurance instead turned into a battlefield of personal grievances and power struggles. Henyard's political maneuvering, coupled with the lack of progress on essential services, has left the township at a standstill. While her supporters continue to rally behind her, the ongoing dysfunction has raised questions about the future of leadership in the community. The lack of insurance is just one example of the growing number of unresolved issues that residents face. Without effective leadership, the township's ability to stabilize and secure the services that its citizens rely on is rapidly diminishing. The turmoil at the meeting revealed a significant personal and political rift at the heart of Thoron Township. Once a close ally of Henyard, Trustee Chris Gonzalez now finds himself one of her fiercest critics. This breakdown in their relationship has been further exacerbated by Gonzalez's alignment with State Senator Napoleon Harris, Henyard's most formidable political rival. Gonzalez's newfound alliance with Harris has injected an additional layer of tension into the proceedings, symbolizing a deeper political fracture that has far-reaching implications for the future of the township. The animosity between Gonzalez and Henyard reached a boiling point during the meeting, as Gonzalez accused Henyard of exploiting the insurance crisis to further her political ambitions. "This is all about control," Gonzalez declared to the room, his voice laced with frustration and defiance. "They can't beat me, so they're trying to block me at every turn." His statement laid bare the personal stakes in the ongoing feud, transforming what should have been a discussion of governance into a bitter power struggle. For Henyard, the accusations were a continuation of a narrative she had been constructing for months, that political forces were working against her, determined to undermine her leadership. She positioned herself as a victim of a conspiracy, claiming that her political enemies were using any means necessary to block her efforts to serve the community. On the other hand, Gonzalez retaliated by pointing to the township's deteriorating state under Henyard's leadership. He questioned her goals, reinforcing the perception that her style of leadership was unpredictable and autocratic. This criticism resonated with some members of the township staff, who voiced their doubts about Henyard's ability to govern effectively. "I probably regret ever nominating her," one employee said, reflecting the growing sense of disillusionment within the local government. The ongoing rift between Henyard and Gonzalez became emblematic of a broader crisis in Thoron Township, one that reflects a lack of collaboration, trust, and clear direction in governance. While Henyard supporters quickly rallied to defend her, accusing Gonzalez of opportunism, others saw the political divide as a sign of the township's inability to function cohesively. As the meeting dragged on, both sides hurled verbal insults, Exposing the deepening dysfunction within the township's political structure, Henyard's defenders argued that Gonzalez was exploiting her current struggles to further his own political career, claiming that his alliance with Harris was a calculated move to increase his influence. Some also contended that his criticisms of Henyard were part of a broader strategy to undermine her and position himself as a more viable leader. Others, however, believed that Gonzalez's criticisms were born out of genuine dissatisfaction with Henyard's leadership style. Many of her detractors described her as increasingly authoritarian, unwilling to listen to opposing viewpoints or work collaboratively with other stakeholders. The fallout from this public dysfunction is not limited to political battles. The unresolved insurance crisis continues to put the township's essential services at risk. Programs like senior transportation, which many residents rely on, and after-school programs for children, could be severely impacted if the township cannot secure coverage. These services are vital to the community, and the prolonged uncertainty surrounding their future is causing growing frustration among residents. The township's ability to provide these services is directly tied to the ability of its leaders to work together, but this has proven increasingly difficult as personal and political grievances take precedence over the needs of the community. Henyard's critics have painted her leadership as divisive, highlighting the failure to resolve critical issues like the insurance crisis as evidence of her inability to govern. What should have been a straightforward discussion on the township's future instead devolved into a series of blame games, with neither side willing to make the necessary concessions. Despite Henyard's defiant rhetoric and the loyal support she retains from certain quarters, her leadership is increasingly seen as polarizing and ineffective. The political drama surrounding the insurance crisis is just one example of the larger dysfunction plaguing Thoron Township. As the stakes continue to rise, it remains unclear whether Henyard will be able to weather the storm of criticism and keep her job. Her detractors, bolstered by alliances like Gonzalez's with Harris, are determined to shift the township's political course. However, as long as personal grudges and political rivalries continue to dominate the conversation, the township's ability to move forward will remain in jeopardy. The ongoing conflict underscores the broader challenges facing Thoron Township, where leadership is now defined by internal strife rather than effective governance. With each passing day, the political climate grows more unstable, and the people of the township are left wondering if their leaders will ever put the needs of the community ahead of their own personal ambitions. For now, the insurance crisis and the political battles surrounding it are likely to remain a central focus of the township's political drama, and the resolution to this crisis remains elusive.
Township and in Dalton, except in one case, Tiffany Henyard launched on a ballot, while in another, a Henyard ally was looking to...
The tension between Mayor Tiffany Henyard and the Board of Trustees is the root cause of the ongoing crisis in Thoron Township. Henyard has openly accused the trustees of deliberately obstructing progress, framing them as saboteurs with a singular aim: to damage her reputation. During a recent contentious meeting, Henyard stated, "They're sabotaging me because they know I'm standing up for the people." Her bold accusations have sparked fierce debates, but the trustees quickly countered, with one privately characterizing Henyard's leadership style as the real barrier to progress. This trustee described Henyard as domineering and unresponsive to criticism, claiming she believes she knows everything, and anyone who disagrees with her is simply labeled as against her. The current situation is marked by deep mistrust and continuous deadlock, transforming the township into a battleground where even the most minor decisions ignite fierce battles. This toxic political climate is not just the result of personal animosities, but reflects deeper dysfunction. A host of red flags has emerged, including allegations of lost money, unexplained expenses, and the use of taxpayer funds for questionable objectives, such as luxury trips. The FBI's ongoing investigation into the Henyard administration's finances, focusing on possible financial malfeasance, has further complicated the situation, while Henyard has vehemently denied any wrongdoing, framing the investigation as a coordinated effort to undermine her leadership. The cloud of suspicion continues to hang over the township. The investigation and the surrounding political drama highlight the leadership breakdown and its detrimental impact on the community. Henyard has repeatedly accused her political enemies of sabotaging her efforts, portraying herself as a victim of a broader conspiracy. She claims that these attacks are part of a deliberate campaign to thwart her progress and prevent her from fulfilling her duties to the people. During a recent public comment period at a township meeting, Henyard supporters voiced their outrage, questioning how they could continue to trust the administration given the numerous unresolved scandals. Many residents are disillusioned, and their concerns go beyond Henyard's claims of coordinated political attacks. The township's financial mismanagement and Henyard's apparent disregard for fiscal responsibility have exacerbated the growing divide within the community. Her supporters remain loyal, arguing that Henyard is standing up for the people in the face of an unjust system. However, for many others, Henyard's rhetoric about fighting a corrupt system rings hollow as they see her as the architect of her own problems. Henyard's polarizing leadership style, which some see as self-serving and authoritarian, has further alienated residents. Her inability to build bridges has become a focal point of criticism, with many feeling that she has failed to unite the township's diverse factions in pursuit of common goals. This lack of cooperation, along with the persistent scandals and accusations, has undermined her credibility, even among those who might sympathize with her struggles. Her decision-making has been called into question, and her tendency to react defensively to any challenge has only deepened the sense of distrust within the township's leadership. The ongoing dysfunction has serious implications for the future of Thoron Township. As the township remains embroiled in internal conflicts, the needs of the community continue to be sidelined. One of the most pressing issues is the stalled insurance renewal, which has left vital services, such as senior transportation, including rides to dialysis treatments, grocery shopping, and medical appointments, in jeopardy. For the elderly and vulnerable residents who rely on these services, the ongoing political turmoil has become a matter of life and death. The uncertainty caused by the township's political battles has left many residents feeling exposed and abandoned. The services that these residents depend on are not mere conveniences. They are essential lifelines that ensure their survival and well-being. The mounting frustration is palpable, with residents voicing their anger over the township's failure to prioritize their needs over internal disputes. What should be a time of unity and decisive action, especially in securing necessary insurance and stabilizing services, has instead devolved into a cycle of bureaucratic failure and political infighting. During a recent community gathering, one resident expressed their profound despair over the state of affairs, pointing out how the township's leadership had allowed crucial services to teeter on the brink of collapse. "This isn't just about poor governance," they said. "This is about people's lives." The frustration was echoed by others in the room, who labeled the ongoing dysfunction as disgraceful. The township's leadership, they argued, had failed to recognize the severity of the situation and the urgent need for action. The residents' anger is not just directed at Henyard, but at the entire leadership structure. Many have voiced their belief that the township's leadership has become more concerned with political power struggles and personal grudges than with serving the needs of the community. The internal conflict has not only disrupted services, but has also eroded the trust and reliability that the residents once had in their elected officials. As the situation continues to deteriorate, it is clear that Thoron Township is facing a leadership crisis of unprecedented proportions. The stakes are higher than ever, and the longer the political infighting persists, the more damage will be done to the township's reputation and its ability to function effectively. The inability of the mayor and the board of trustees to work together for the common good has left the township in a state of paralysis, where decisions that should be advancing the community's interests are instead stuck in bureaucratic limbo. For the township's most vulnerable residents, especially the elderly, the stakes could not be higher. They are enduring the brunt of the ongoing political turmoil, and their lives are directly impacted by the dysfunction at the township level. Without a functioning government to support them, these residents are left to navigate a growing crisis on their own. The future of Thoron Township hangs in the balance. As long as the leadership remains mired in conflict, the township's ability to address the needs of its residents will continue to be compromised. For many, the question is no longer just about governance. It's about survival. If the current trajectory persists, the community's trust in its leaders will continue to erode, and the township's once promising future may be lost in the chaos of internal strife. Residents of Thoron Township are increasingly vocal in their frustration with the leadership, as the failure to act has left the community in turmoil. Critics argue that this lack of accountability is not only politically damaging but also unforgivable, particularly for the seniors and other vulnerable residents who rely on essential services. These services, which safeguard their independence, health, and overall well-being, are now at risk due to the ongoing crisis. The community's message is clear: enough with the finger-pointing and political maneuvering. It's time for the leadership to focus on practical, real-world solutions that protect the most vulnerable and end the instability that has plagued the township for far too long. The situation is dire, and without immediate intervention, critics warn that the dysfunction will only worsen. The costs of inaction are not just political. They are deeply human. As the crisis continues to unfold, the stakes for Thoron Township's most at-risk residents grow with every passing day. The town has reached a critical point, demanding swift, thoughtful, and compassionate leadership, qualities that to date have been sorely lacking. Some residents expressed their discontent during the public comment period of a recent meeting, calling for Mayor Henyard's resignation and demanding accountability from the board of trustees. Meanwhile, The financial issues within the township took center stage, with trustees battling over whose bills should be paid first. This public dispute further revealed the deep divisions within the board, with no clear resolution in sight. Henyard herself rejected any compromise, dismissing attempts to address the insurance crisis and telling the trustees, "I'm not here to negotiate." Henyard's combative leadership style, characterized by an unwillingness to collaborate and an overemphasis on personal battles, has made her increasingly unpopular with many members of the board. This hostility has been compounded by her ongoing lawsuit against the Thoron Township Democratic Party. She argues that the caucus process that disqualified her from the ballot for the upcoming township supervisor election was unfair. Henyard claims that her supporters were locked out of the venue, preventing them from voting. However, State Senator Napoleon Harris, who chaired the caucus, refuted her allegations, arguing that the process was fair and followed the rules. Henyard's detractors point to her controversial financial decisions as further evidence of her inability to lead. Her past spending habits, including lavish trips, undisclosed expenses like an $85,000 concert, and questionable dealings involving her defunct burger company, have raised serious concerns about her fitness for office. These revelations have fueled criticism that Henyard is more focused on protecting her political career and personal interests than serving the needs of the township. The township's financial issues, including a stalled insurance renewal, have left essential services like senior transportation hanging in the balance. The continuing drama surrounding Henyard's leadership, including her decision to plan a bingo night during a financial crisis, has left many residents disillusioned. The township's budget remains unresolved, with tax levy negotiations ending in chaos. The trustees and Henyard appear incapable of working together, with no solutions in sight. Meanwhile, the township's employees and residents continue to suffer, caught in the middle of a leadership battle that seems to have no end as the township's leadership remains gridlocked. Many are turning to social media to voice their frustrations. One commenter expressed disbelief at the dysfunction, stating, "This is the most dysfunctional leadership I've ever seen." The comment echoed a widespread sentiment that Henyard, with or without the trustees' help, should be able to secure the necessary insurance to stabilize the situation. The question now facing the residents is whether Henyard can turn things around or if it's time for new leadership altogether. While she maintains that her actions are about protecting democracy and giving the people a voice, the ongoing crisis paints a different picture. The township's most vulnerable residents, who rely on essential services to live, are suffering as the political drama continues to unfold. The rising tide of dissatisfaction makes it unclear whether Henyard can continue to weather the storm or whether her critics will succeed in changing the course of the township's future in the wake of a chaotic meeting where no meaningful progress was made. Thoron Township's residents are left wondering what the future holds. Will the leadership be able to set aside their differences and work for the good of the community? Or will the dysfunction continue to spiral out of control? One thing is certain. The situation is far from over, and the residents who are caught in the middle are the ones who will bear the brunt of the fallout.